Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for coming to this webinar in our Learning and Growing series, a solutions-oriented approach to grammar instruction. My name's Caitlin Edall. I'm the English product lead here at Hawks, and I put our contact info here, english@hawkslearning.com. Feel free to email us if you have any questions or comments, want to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you have any questions throughout the course of this webinar, you can put them in the Q&A box. There should be an option down at the bottom on your Zoom toolbar. And then also stay tuned because at the end of this presentation, I will put a link in the chat for you to take a quick survey and fill out to be entered to win one of five $50 Amazon gift cards for attending today. So I wanted to start with a meme because why not? I don't know if any of you have seen or remember Whose Line Is It Anyway, but their tagline was where everything's made up and the points don't matter. It was an improv show and actors were given random prompts and they just made up skits on the spot. And one day I was thinking and I thought, you know what, I think English grammar can feel this way to a lot of people, where everything's made up and the points don't really matter. Of course, this isn't true. And today we're going to go over some solutions to this mindset and why people might feel that way, and what we can do about that. So sort of three common problems that I'm going to be addressing today in this webinar that I think are common across a lot of different classrooms and instructors, especially in the realm of grammar instruction and English in general, honestly, is limited instruction time. So just not having the time to spend, especially on grammar, because you really need that valuable time with your students to cover higher level skills a lot of the time, like reading, writing, and research. Also, a second problem that often comes up is assessing student skill level. Students come into the classroom and they have a wide variety of skills, some of them depending on their background, their educational background, whether they're returning students or they're, first year or first generation students. You can have a wide mix in one classroom, and that can be difficult to address all of their needs at the same time. And then the third reason we're going to cover, the third kind of problem for this attitude that can be pervasive towards grammar is low student engagement. This isn't anything new, but obviously just more and more it's getting to be difficult to engage students, especially through extremely traditional methods. So I'm going to go over in this webinar ways that particularly our new title, Grammar Foundations, addresses these problems. But of course, a lot of these solutions can be applied in a broader context as well. So let's jump in. So problem number one, limited instruction time. Some solutions to this that I would recommend are allowing for independent review, providing a guided learning path, having pre-made projects, and then offering practice and support. So let's dive into some specific examples and ways that we can address these solutions and facilitate them. But all of these, I just wanted to note, are really about putting the power in students' hands and giving them sort of ownership over their learning process and the ability to take initiative, because that's so key in learning, but also providing enough support that they don't feel thrown out to sea at the same time. So first, I'm going to focus on the first two solutions, independent review and a guided learning path. So first of all, I wanted to show our courseware here. We have this Learn, Practice, Certify mode. These are clearly labeled 1, 2, 3. It's very easy to follow this sort of path. And it provides a way for students to work independently while still having the guidance they need to work through and feel confident that they're addressing everything that they need to address, starting with learning the content itself, then getting into practice and building up confidence, applying the skills and concepts they've learned, and then certify being the last step and being sort of their homework and their ability to really gauge their progress and feel like they do know what they have studied. And having a path like this is so key, I think, because it can be confusing for students when they jump into a course that they're not familiar with or that they're not particularly thrilled with. to have something that guides them so they don't feel lost and sort of unsure of their next steps. That's key. The next solution I want to focus on is pre-made projects. So in Grammar, we have these projects. We have two parts to each of them. There's one per chapter. There's the project assignment, and then there's the writing assignment. These are ready to go. They were written by an instructor. And basically, the project assignment is sort of a creative application of the concept. And then the writing assignment is contextualizing what they've learned in the chapter. So again, so key to have ways for students to apply what they're learning in a fresh and new way. So the project assignment can be anything from them creating a game, like here they're labeling note cards, and then they'll do a memorization game later on, or they might look at a picture of a building and then write a description of it, using the skills and the concepts they've learned in the chapter, rather than just considering them in an isolated way. And then again, the writing assignment also builds on this by contextualizing grammar and everything that they've learned in the chapter in a more relevant format for them, since they're not going to be asked to identify nouns pretty much in any other class, but they will need to use nouns effectively in their writing or pronoun antecedent agreement, or, forming cohesive sentences, whatever that might be. And so contextualization is so important. It's been proven over and over again that that's one of the most effective ways to teach skills, including grammar. So again, and these writing assignments are sort of meeting students where they are. So they're not being asked to do anything very complex or very complicated. They could be completed regardless of the student's skill level or comfortability with writing. And then the last solution for the limited instruction time that we have here is practice and support. Again, just making it so that students can work on their own and feel like they are taking ownership, and that they can work without needing necessarily the constant guidance or oversight of an instructor. So here I have an example from our courseware again of our question bank, specifically in the practice mode. They have what we call tutor. So these up at the top, I've highlighted explain error, hint. They can go back into learn, which is the content itself, and then solution. And what's really key about this is not only are they just being told like, yes, you got this answer correct, or no, you didn't get it correct, but actually explaining the why. And that's incredibly important for having students actually learn the material and not just learn how to answer the question correctly, but learn how the skill itself and how the concept itself works. And so this is just one example. All of our questions have this component of the explain error, the hint, and the solution, and it explains to them clearly. They were asked to identify a revised version of a fused sentence, but the student chose instead what ended up being a comma splice, and here that is explained clearly why they might have chosen that and why that's not actually correct. So again, saving you time as the instructor to focus on maybe higher level things, or maybe things that require more explanation, and having the student sort of be guided through and work independently and still be able to feel confident that they're understanding the material. And then when they do have questions, you can be confident that it's actually something that you really need to address with them. Okay, so problem 2 that we often encounter, assessing student skill level. So some ways that we can do this are with diagnostics and assessments, reports, and with a sort of mastery pedagogy or approach. So first, I'm going to focus on diagnostics, assessments, and reports. They all often go together. So here I've included screenshots of the results of a student taking one of our grammar diagnostics that comes in the Grammar Foundations course. A lot of learning management systems offer reports for instructors, and I know we do especially. We have extensive reports, but I really wanted to focus actually on students as well, that they need transparency and they need to see their progress. And so this is what a student will see if they complete the diagnostic. They will get a graph, they'll get a breakdown of all the lessons that they were working through, which ones they got correct, which ones they got incorrect, and they can actually click on this bar graph here. They can select the lesson where they got some questions incorrect and be taken straight into practice mode to sort of beef up and review on the questions that they missed. And these diagnostics can be used in multiple different ways, especially I would recommend as pre or post tests. That's so important for gauging progress and assessing student skill level. You'll get a snapshot view of all your students, how they're doing, where they are at the beginning of the semester. You can tailor and remediate accordingly throughout the semester. And then at the end of the semester, you could administer again and see how they've progressed. And you'll receive detailed analytics. And then, of course, students as well, again, encouraging them to sort of take ownership of their own learning process. They will get sort of the simplified version here, like in these screenshots, so that they can see exactly how they're doing. And then the last thing for solutions is mastery. So, it's one thing to pinpoint how are my students doing and what do they need practice on and what skills do they need to build up, but then being assured that that's actually happening is pretty important as well. And so one way that we like to do this at Hawks is using the mastery approach. So I mentioned before that there's practice mode and then there's what we call certify mode. And this is basically just removing penalties in practice mode and then giving them plentiful opportunities to work through and feel confident that once they have completed something, they have learned it fully. So once they get into certify, it is still fairly low stakes. They can save and exit at any time, unless, of course, they're trying to meet a certain deadline that you may have set for them to finish the homework, but they can leave and come back to it if they need to. And they have up here, I've circled these hearts. They have 3 attempts. This can be changed depending on how many you would like them to have. We usually recommend about 80% mastery. So students could miss 3 questions out of the 15 in this case and still certify. And that means that they have truly mastered the content and that they can be confident that they have learned the material thoroughly and that they no longer need any more review. So it's only homework and it's, that's really not meant for them to be performing perfectly. It's really meant for them to practice and build up the skills. And that's the most important thing, not having them check the box of answering every question correctly. And then once they finish certify, if they did not actually complete it, if they did not certify, they will be given the opportunity to go right back into practice and work on the questions that they missed. So again, giving them ownership, being transparent about how they're doing. There's more analytics that are not included in the screenshot, but they're given a breakdown of how much time they spent in certified, how many attempts they made, and really just giving them the confidence to work on it themselves as opposed to sort of being defeated. And once they get to the end, they're thinking, I don't know what I did wrong. I guess I'll just try again and maybe try guessing a different answer this time. They're really encouraged instead to think about it, take their time, work through it, and actually build up the skills that they need. So the third problem that we often encounter is low student engagement. And again, not to villainize social media or anything like that. We all, I think, encounter distractions with social media. And I know my attention span is a lot lower than it used to be. But really, the modes that students are using to engage now are very media focused. They're very short sort of videos and sound bites, and really reading through a text-heavy book is not really something that a lot of students have skill or practice or desire to do. So how can we still teach them what they need to know, but do it in a way that's engaging and that actually meets them where they are? And 3 ways that we can do this are with activities, And then by encouraging self-reflection, and then also encouraging them to make real life connections between what they're learning and what they experience in their day-to-day lives. So first, let's talk about activities. This is so important. I've highlighted some examples of activities in Grammar Foundations. One of these is what we call on your owns. We have a couple different kinds of on your owns, and this is just one example. It's a fill in the blank. So they can read the sentence, they're being asked to complete it with a pronoun that agrees in gender with the underlined antecedent. And this is in a section in the lesson where they have just learned this concept. So they've read about it, and then they immediately are encouraged to apply what they've learned. It's low stakes, it's not penalized, it's simply for them to get sort of their juices flowing, think about it, get their brain actively involved, taking them from being a sort of passive receiver of the information into an active participant and actually being part of the learning process instead of just receiving it. So I wanted to pause for a minute and sort of apply that concept here and let everyone think of your answers, what you would put in the blanks here. And then on the next slide, I'll show you maybe what suggested answers could be. So you can think them to yourself, you can type them out somewhere, you can write them down, but I'll just pause for a few seconds here and let everyone think about their answers. And again, low stakes. I'm not going to ask you to turn them in. You're not going to be graded. Okay, so let's see what we got. So you can see there's a couple of different options here. And again, just encouraging students to really think that it's not necessarily about it being correct or perfect, although there is absolutely the option to print these, and you could ask students to print them out and bring them into class if they so desired, or they could print them out for their own benefit if they would like to review them later. But really just getting them thinking, getting them out of passive learning and into active learning. Another example of an on your own activity that we have is what we tend to call a box quiz. It's sort of like those fun online quizzes you can take where you just tap on your answer. And here again, penalty free, they're given immediate feedback. So if they select yes, then they are given the explanation of why that is correct. And then if they select no, they would be also given an explanation for that as well. So again, low stakes, just something to keep them active and engaged and participating. And then next, I'm going to focus on self-reflection and real-life connections as solutions to low engagement. And again, these often do go together. It's sometimes difficult to have one without the other. So just as two examples here, I've put two of what we call our engagement boxes. We have a couple of different kinds scattered throughout every lesson in Grammar Foundations. These are just two examples, further resources and reflection questions. We also have helpful hints and some others as well. But I wanted to include these in particular because they tie into the theme of sort of self-reflection and then also real-life connections. So further resources usually point students to something outside of the courseware to sort of get them curious. And curiosity is such a key component of learning. And so this sort of encourages them to, if they want to, go outside of just, you know, what they're learning in the textbook or what they're learning in the courseware and really see how a certain concept or idea might exist in the larger world around them. And so here, this one's kind of fun. It's in a section about when to use who versus whom, and then also whoever versus whomever. And then it points them to a clip from The Office where this debate actually happens and asks them to think about, do you think any of the characters got it right? So they can actually see how this might play out, obviously in a comedic context, but to connect it to something outside of just the book or the course that they're in and really see it in a different context. And then also encouraging them again to apply what they've learned. You know, they might think, oh, that's interesting. You know, after I've watched this clip, I do actually want to go back and see what the rules, you know, in the lesson are, the guidelines, and see how they apply here. And then also self-reflection and then real life connections also come in here. I put this thing here that we call reflection questions. So really asking students to self-reflect, to reflect and think about their own experiences and their own thoughts. Here, this one is asking, while it's unusual in formal contexts, referring to an inanimate object as she or he is pretty common in everyday speech. Can you think of any examples, and why do you think this is done? So again, this is in the section talking about pronouns, pronoun antecedent agreement, and sort of conventions for using pronouns, and asking students to think about when everyday speech or sort of in real life, you might say, we deviate from grammar guidelines or grammar rules. Are they actually rules? You know, encouraging them to think critically, acknowledging that there are many different ways to speak, and clearly this is something that's done in everyday life. So why would this differ from, you know, sort of accepted grammar guidelines? So just to summarize what we've gone over, sort of three pervasive problems that we're facing and seeing a lot are limited instruction time, the ability to assess student skill levels across a large group of students or students with very different skill levels, and then also just low student engagement, especially in the case of grammar. It can be a dry subject, let's be real. And so how do we encourage students to really see the relevance and the significance of these topics? And then the solutions that we went over for limited instruction time are providing opportunities for independent review on the students' part, giving them a guided learning path, having pre-made projects that not only save you time as an instructor, but also give students a different way to engage with the material, and then providing plentiful practice and support. Practice is so key in any course, and especially in grammar, just having the opportunity to try over and over again in a low stakes environment is key. And then having the support to back that up. And then for assessing student skill level, some ways to remediate this are with diagnostics and assessments, providing sort of pinpointing where students are and where they might need extra help, reports both for you as an instructor and then also for students, so that there's transparency, there's a way to gauge actual progress and to see exactly where, again, more remediation might be needed. And then last of all, mastery. You know, once you've pinpointed where students might need additional help, then also ensuring that they are mastering the topics and the concepts and not simply learning how to answer questions correctly or just sort of skimming through, but actually absorbing and having confidence in their own skills and their own learning ability. And then last but not least, the solutions that we went over for low student engagement, providing activities, whether that's individually or in a group setting, and we do have those as well in Grammar Foundation's group activities. Self-reflection, the ability for students to think about how these concepts apply to them in their real life, where they've seen them play out, think critically about differences that they might see between what they're learning and what's actually being practiced in real life. And then also, again, very related to that, real life connections, seeing how what they're learning is not isolated. It doesn't exist only in a classroom. It doesn't exist only in a textbook. It's not just an arbitrary subject that they have to learn in order to pass this class and go on to something else, but it's really actually very relevant in every part of their lives, more than they may have realized, and why that's something that's important for them to learn about. So any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the Q&A box down below, and I can check on those right now. I'll give everyone just a minute or two if you have any that you want to think of, and I'll check on that now and see if there's any to be answered. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for listening. And please do reach out, again, english@hawkslearning.com, if you have any questions, comments, if you want to get in touch with us and learn more. We would love to hear from you. And in the meantime, giving you all a chance to think of any questions you might have. I also wanted to mention again that there is a quick survey you can fill out and be entered to win one of 5 $50 Amazon gift cards. I will put that information in the chat now. And while you're filling out that survey, while you're thinking of your questions, I thought I'd leave you with one more meme. Okay. So that information for the survey is in the chat. We'd really appreciate it if you would fill it out. We would love that. And you could win an Amazon gift card. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to access that link. All right. If anyone hasn't quite gotten to it yet, which I hope you have, hopefully I've given you enough time, but if not, we will definitely get in touch with you afterwards. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll be in contact. Thank you all for coming. Again, if you think of any questions for us or comments, please do send those our way and we can follow up afterwards. Oh, okay. It says someone mentioned that it says the link is disabled. Let me check on that for you. Sorry about that.